it's hard, I think, for a lot of gamers to realise that we're part of their marketing budget. You know,
right.
We are a tiny, even though this game, we've got thousands of copies out there, and we've printed so much stuff. They're amazing books, but it's still mugs and pencils and calendars in the Academy. So, and we are a very small part of things.
He has been called the most prolific writer you've never heard of. Andrew is part of the design teams that brought us so many different games, and here's just a few. The new 2D20 Dune, Cubicle 7's Doctor Who, 2nd edition Blue Rose, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Opera House, 7th Sea, and even the Firefly game. Now, his take on the Modifius 2D20 system is interesting, and I love hearing him talk about it. He also talks about the reality of what it takes to bring games like these to print. I will give you a content warning. Hearing him talk about the new Dune game might result in you adding it to one of your shopping carts. But make sure you stick around to the end to hear the incredible story of a little game he made called Pie Shop. Our newest patrons are part of the reason you're getting today's episode. It's because of their support and the other 100+ patrons that I'm able to put out material like this on a weekly basis. So a special thanks to Przemslaw Ryba, James Nevitt, Steve Maroney, Matt Sherwin, Michael R. Underwood, William Usall, Robert Sabbath, and Justin Whitman. All right, sit back, relax, and enjoy my time with Andrew.
Do you love to unplug and play games around the table? Greetings, friends and floorheads, to Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. If you love tabletop gaming, you are in the right place. Listen as Craig delivers in-depth discussions and interviews with game designers, creators, insiders, and experts. Learn from the people making and playing the role-playing, miniature, and board games you love.
Howdy friends, Craig here. Today we're talking to writer and designer Andrew Peregrine. Andrew is responsible for creating and contributing to a long list of role-playing games. But most recently, his new Dune role-playing game is just getting into players' hands. So Andrew, welcome to the Third Floor.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So, Andrew, one of the first things I like to do with guests that haven't been on the show before is kind of get your origin story. So, at one point in time, you knew nothing about role-playing games. You didn't know how to roll dice and pretend to be other people. And then you kind of discovered it. So, I'm wondering where you were when you first encountered tabletop gaming.
Well, it was school for me. I had the lucky advantage, I suppose, of being born at a time when, or coming to school at a time when D&D was kind of I'd say in its heyday, but it's kind of back in its heyday, which is really nice to see. So loads of people around school were playing this cool thing called Dungeons and Dragons, and it was really cool. And they had these weird sheets of paper, and I wanted to know what those were, and they were like, no, you're not cool enough to play Dungeons and Dragons with us. So yeah, I just got involved in it, being obviously a complete nerd, not wanting to have anything to do with sports. The D&D clubs would let you not only stay inside during the cold winter days, when they were sending you outside with a football or something equally horrific, but also let you have an early dinner pass, which was a sensible idea, because when you had an hour for dinner at school, if you could lose about 3/4 of an hour just queuing up and eating food, so you got an early dinner pass so you could nip in, grab some food, and then go up and play Dungeons and Dragons, to discover that in the meantime your character had died because apparently you'd charged a dragon. So yes, I've learned at the furnaces of having a new wizard character every other week, so we played that. I then taught my brother and a couple of friends, and we've been playing it. And then, of course, as usual with gaming, I've gone through several different gaming groups as time has gone on. You move around, and I've always managed to find gamers or join in with other gamers at some point, because they are generally lovely people. And now I probably do it far too much still. So it's been so I started when I was 11 in 1981, and please don't do any more maths about that. So I've been doing it for a little while.
I'd be curious, Andrew. So for a lot of people, when I hear their origin story, there's a period of time where they kind of put tabletop gaming down, right? They took a year or two, or sometimes 5-10 years break from tabletop gaming. Was that true for you as well, or have you consistently been playing since you were 11?
Well, not the same game since I was 11, but
right.
I don't remember any particularly large hiatuses. I mean, I think when I moved school from the small school to the big school, I was a bit sideways until I found another D&D club. But no, I've had very long-term things and been horrifically obsessive about it. So it's just, I mean, it's like when you find your thing. It's like, you know, there's times I've sort of stepped back and not gamed as much, maybe. But usually when I'm burning out as a GM or something, because I tend to be the one running things. But no, even when I am, I mean, it's kind of one of the reasons I write is because my theatre schedule, now that I am actually working full-time in the theatre, it's taken a long time to fight my way through in the career that way. But I can't always get to see everyone at the same times. You know, I do probably still do far too much gaming, but I can't always see everyone. You know, I regularly, very easily, there are times. And writing games is a way which I can surreptitiously do at the lighting desk. Writing games is a way I can keep up with my hobby and continue, you know, making and creating, and you know, as all gamers do, while I haven't got a group around me at the time. You know, so it's so that part of it's been very, you know, very useful and very good. But
so I'd be interested, Andrew. Obviously, like many of us, you start with D&D, but when adult Andrew looks back at kind of young Andrew discovering games, was there any other systems that you came across that really had a huge impact on you and kind of changed how you looked at role playing?
Well, I'd argue to a certain degree every game still teaches you that. I mean, if there are so many games out there and so many amazing designers. I mean, I write a thing for EN World, so I do little blog posts for them, which I must do some more of actually as well, in between things. And I've called it as a sort of game design masterclass thing, because there are so many. And this is, I should hasten to add, not me lecturing how to do games design. It's a series of sort of semi-reviews of saying, if you like gaming, you should check this game out because this one does this thing that's really cool and well done, which came, of course, from, I mean, I suppose I can go back to games that have changed. There's about 2 or 3, I suppose, thinking about it now, that have been particularly incisive for those things. One of them particularly is Discovering Pendragon, which I would...
Oh, yeah.
And this is one I will fight people on. It is absolutely the most perfectly designed system ever written.
Wow.
And I will stand by. I will fight anyone on this one. It's every time you look at Pendragon, you find something else it just does perfectly, but it is both simple, elegant, clean, and everything. Just every cog and bolt in Pendragon fits together beautifully. Now, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the perfect game. There are flaws in the setting, like you have to be knights, so you don't have quite the same character variety.
Sure.
Of things. So it's not to say play this game, play nothing else, because that's a really silly way to carry on. But when you look at the core of, I mean, it's a genius game anyway. But when you look at the system for Pendragon, I have yet to see design make or see anything that comes close to it. And in fact, as John Wick, I think, coined the Greg Stafford rule, that is absolutely true, is whenever you create something and you think, yeah, I've created a brand new rule, this is going to change role playing, you look back and found that it's in one of Greg Stafford's games. Every time, every single time.
That son of a bitch.
Exactly. He's a brilliant game designer and will be much, and continue to be much missed, I think. So, yes, he's one of the few old great games designers that I did actually get to at least exchange a few words with once at a convention when I got him to sign something, which was wonderful.
What's crazy about that for me, Andrew, is for you to talk about, how it mechanically and just so many aspects of it that it's perfect for you, and it's not a new game. So a lot of times you'll hear about, it's so innovative and it's so perfect, it's so clean and elegant, and it tends to be the newer games that you hear that lauded on. But it sounds like he was way ahead of his time.
Oh, he absolutely was. Now, that's not to say that there haven't been some amazing games since then. It's like
sure.
And I have to sort of add this one because it's an argument I have with my dad, who's a massive film buff. I mean, proper film fan. He's an English teacher as well, and he studied film from a long time. And he'll always say, Citizen Kane, the greatest film ever made. No, Citizen Kane, it's a film. And I mean, I must actually see it. It is a great film, I'm sure. But it also left me thinking, well, isn't that a sad indictment of cinema? Not because Citizen Kane isn't a great film, but it was made in the 1940s, and if in 60 years nobody's done better. Isn't that a sad thing? Shouldn't there be a greater film if we've learned anything, if anything else? So there's a certain degree you think, but Pendragon's going to take a lot of beating. But there are still some, amazing. You often find these moments of genius. I mean, this is what this series is about. When I do these little masterclass articles, it's about finding those moments of genius in other games that might not necessarily be the complete package of geniusness. But so often there's something where you go, oh, that's nice. I mean, it's things, and sometimes it's a tiny thing. It's like one of my favorite things, the Free League's Alien game, which is a fantastic piece of design. It's
great game.
Very simple, very straightforward. But my favorite bit is one that a lot of people might have actually missed, is in the experience section. Because when it looks down the list of things you get an experience point for, one of the ones it says is, if you made any money in this adventure, get an experience point. So that's suddenly just, I just love that, because you look back at all the Alien films and you think, who are the guys who go, no, we're not going to run from the alien now. We're not going to dump the cash quite yet. Maybe we can just make an extra buck. And now the GM can look at the players and say, if you throw these away, that's an experience point out the window for you at the end of the adventure. And you can see, it's those little moments when games designers come up with things like that, and you go, it's like one sentence in the rule book, but it's pure gold.
I'm a huge fan of and I call those, this is probably not the right term, but I call them trigger experience points, right? Yeah. Where you have a list of questions and it triggers, experience. And I think the first time I encountered it, and keep in mind that, I was not playing role-playing games for 20 years. So I'm not by no means saying this is the first time it was done. It was the first time I encountered it was John Harper's Blades in the Dark. And I remember, because I came from old D&D and GURPS and stuff like that. And I read that for the first time. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And then Free League, not only with the aliens, but you see in a lot of the Free League games, you're seeing that. And what I like about it, to your point, Andrew, is it's a way for the designer to curate the entire experience. I mean, the designer is saying to you, this is how you play the game, right? Yeah. This is what you should be looking for and where you'll find enjoyment, which I think is fantastic.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's one of the aspects of good setting games design is when you look at things and go, if you look at things in the movie, or let's say or the comic or the book, and there are bound to be things where you'll look at the characters and go, why are you doing that? That's such a dumb thing to do. The monster's behind you, or the gold's over. Why are you doing that? And if as a games design, you can put things in so that the player characters in the game will do those exact same things for exactly the same reasons, then you've got the setting, and then you are, ahead of the game in that, because that's what you're trying to evoke and bring that experience of being in the movie or the comic at the same point.
It's funny, Andrew, because obviously we're going to talk about Dune in a little bit, but I thought about Alien, because I remember when I first came across Alien and heard about Alien, no interest whatsoever. I'm like, that doesn't interest me. I know how the movie goes. I know how things end. There's horror games out there. I can go play Mothership. I can go do horror Traveler or whatever. And then I watched an actual play of it and realized what was happening, and realized what Gasca had done and what he had put together. And I'm like, holy shit. I when he made me a fan and I bought it and have just devoured that game.
Yes.
That's because it was a huge mountain for him to go up because I really thought of it. But what was great about it is it made me realize, because your Dune game, and we're going to get to it, is the first time that I have been open to that, because 10, 15 years ago, I'd be like, no, I've read Dune. I'm good. I don't really want to play there. I'd like to hang out there. But now that I've seen how far we've come in design, now I'm like, yeah, give me Star Trek, give me Dune, give me all of it. Like, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So the last thing before we go to the next segment, Andrew, is... you mentioned being a GM, right, and running games a lot as you're growing up. And, I ran games when I was growing up, as do a lot of our listeners. But not everybody starts to fiddle. We might change things in the adventure or adjust a module, but something happened with you where you went from running games to creating games. And I would love to get a kind of a sense of maybe what drove that and when that started to happen.
I have no real idea. I certainly started making games reasonably early. So it was, my other milestone game, which is probably the same milestone game for everyone, is of course Call of Cthulhu, which is one where I remember it was my move from D&D to other games when I realised that instead of buying Deads and Demigods with my birthday money for a whole £10, it was so expensive in those days, I could, and particularly as Deads and Demigods didn't have the Cthulhu Melibonian mythos in it, I'd missed out on that one. I was like, do I buy this one? But it's the next D&D book. I want another D&D book. And then I looked at the shelf and went, oh my God, this Games Workshop company, they've made a reprint, and for some unknown reason, it's half the price it is in America. Well, great, and I can buy a whole new game for my $9.99. So that just opened up the world of, and the Games Workshop, did so many reprinting these games. I got fully into all the Chaosium ones, Stormbringer, Ringworld. One of my rare games I love to have on the shelf that usually comes out. Sadly, not enough to play, but often to wave at other people. Go, look, I've got it and the companion. Oh yeah, I've got that on my bookshelf. Yeah, you are jealous.
The nerd bragging rights.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the same thing. So,
that's funny.
So yes, and the copy of the old Stormbringer, which is still one of my favourite role-playing covers of all time, with Elric with the sword across his.
So
nothing's
iconic.
Matched that for a long time. Love that cover. We played so much Stormbringer at the time, but yes, all those. But while I was picking up all these other games, there were other. I think it's basically there are other worlds I wanted to play in. So, for instance, I remember particularly trying to do the Prisoner role-playing game, which is start at the top of the mountain, which always successful. But there's a GURPS, The Prisoner, which is a great book. That's another one of my prize from my Cold Dead Hands role-playing.
That was a good supplement. They did a good job.
Great
with that.
Supplement, yeah. And so I tried playing that, and I did play the first thing I tried to put together as a new actual original setting game was a game I called Ice Pirates, which has absolutely nothing to do with the film, which I've never even actually seen. I keep meaning to get round, but I keep hearing it's really bad at the same time.
It's bad.
It's really bad. So. But I saw the name. I suppose this is what you get it, where you come to all of these things. I saw the name Ice Pirates and thought, it's like pirates who are after ice. There's stuff I can do with that. And I've also just seen, and again, you steal from everything, particularly in that age. One of my favourite Doctor Who episodes is also Enlightenment, which has all the ships sailing through space towards the, trying to, in this race to gain enlightenment. And so I put together this world that would probably never work, but one day I might resurrect this and try and rebuild it. As if you see this Kickstarter appear, it's potentially your fault as well. That where I had this world that was called Psychania, that had every so often its orbit was in a sort of weird elliptic shape, and it would get too close to its sun, and the water would boil off it into space and collect into these great ice asteroids outside it. Once it got into space, it would cool down and it would all thaw. So obviously these people who would take cover during this horrific burning time in the rocks of the planet would then come out. They would need water. So they would have to send ships up to do this. Now, the way the winds are, this is horrifically. Arrakis has got nothing on this planet.
This is because I'm in, Andrew. Keep going.
The way they would take the ships off is that the winds were so high, you could get sailing ships to sail across these great dust seas that were out there, which were so powerful winds, it could literally blow your ship
Lift you up
pretty much off the edge of the world, off into space. And so people would sail up with these. They had a bit of technology to create a sort of oxygen shield around their ship, and they would sail off and collect the ice and bring it back. But of course, some people would, it was a lot easier to steal it from people rather than hack it out of the ice asteroids. Of course, economics, another thing to work into your early game designs, that of course ice pirates would be out there stealing the ice, and you would either be defending the merchants, and I'd got lightsabers in there and some sort of magic.
That's phenomenal.
And things. I'd stolen something from everything. But I remember trying to, but I would pencil together these games, usually made entirely based on the systems I knew, like, for instance, Chaosium system. I'd write, which is so easy to do, BRP. I'd write a list of skills, work out, say, how many points you got for it, work out things. So we did, I think, a monkey role-playing game, Ice Pirates Prisoner. We did, yes, and I have to say, we did all put together the David Eddings Belgariad books. We had my friends and I had a big session reading them. I'd seen them on one of my friend's bookshelves, and I said, "Oh, that looks interesting." I hadn't read those, so I started reading them. Then and this was one summer holiday, so I was talking about these books to my friend Simon, who owned them. And then everyone else would say, "Oh, these sound good. Can I borrow it after you?" And then, "Oh, can I borrow that after you?" So all four of us in the group were reading these books in a cycle, and we through. And so, of course, the natural thing that came to mind is, "Oh, well, we want to play in this game." So we created this role-playing game around it, and played a few adventures of characters in this thing, and it led to the one that we've never let, because I have to commit this to a podcast, because we've never let Simon forget this. He was playing one of I think they're called the Algars, who are people who can talk to horses. They have an empathic bond, and they can actually communicate with their horses. And we had one of those big party rows not between us as players, it was a character in-game row about where we were going to go, or what we were going to do, or what was going to happen, and we all fell out horribly and all hated each other, and it was ended stone cold with Simon's character standing in the doorway of the inn and saying, "Well, if that's how you all feel, I'm going to sleep with my horse." Slammed the door. And that just left after all of us going, "Okay, you've just ended the argument now," because we were,
and that's edged in history now. That will always be
thing.
That's funny.
Yes, if Simon sees this, hears this podcast later, he's going to go, "You had to share that story, didn't you?" Although not as good as, say, a more recent one, which I won't go into the whole background of this one, but this is quite sad. My friend James, who my favourite quote ever, was throwing his dice to the table with enthusiasm and rage, and exclaiming, "Oh, these dice are so random!" And and the concerning thing is, every single one of us knew exactly what he was talking about and utterly agreed with him, that it was deeply unfair
fantastic.
that his dice were rolling randomly. We had to say that is kind of the point of them, but it's
that's really funny.
We all know exactly what you mean. There's nothing random about dice. We all know that. You can't tell me. Yeah, you can't tell me that the dice don't know, or they're not doing it on purpose. That's why we have dice jails.
It's very true.
Exactly.
I get there's sometimes I get sucked into it, and I'm better about not getting sucked into it. But you'll hear, I'll be on some forums for VTTs, and you'll hear somebody say, there's a bias in the Roll20 dice. I'm like, shut up. No, there's not. Like, why? I'm not even going to have this discussion with you, but I get sucked into it sometimes.
Well, my luck over these did worry Don McDowell from Cubicle 7, where we were playing some One Ring quite early on. And I found that for some, this is just our group, there's nothing wrong with it, but I have to say to him, we were playing One Ring with the official dice, and we kept rolling Eyes of Sauron. I'd like 20 turn up in the session. It's just the way.
Funny.
And John was like, "Oh God, I don't really want to think that our dice are literally made of fail."
That's funny.
Obviously there wasn't anything wrong with the dice. Before anyone goes dashing out to it was absolutely not. We just had a very bad roll rolling.
That's
night.
funny.
But no, that just amused me.
Well, that stuff burns in your memory, and it's something that I've talked to a lot of people about that's very unique about role playing. So I do a lot of tabletop gaming, board games, card games, miniature games, but there's something very unique about the shared storytelling and the memories that form with role playing. I mean, I can't tell you a year ago about a single game of, Malifaux or whatever miniature game I played. I can tell you nothing about it. But I can tell you when I was 13 about my druid when he went to the castle and they just go,
absolutely.
and like I was just there. It's amazing. It's amazing. So guys, the Insider Insight series, please.
Yeah, well, I was to say, we are all, it's, the thing about role-playing is it's part of our own soap opera. So I think basically you remember it the same way you remember your favourite TV shows and things. And it's more memorable because you were part of them.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and I can't remember who I was talking to, and I liked how they put it. It's very similar to what you said, is you're creating a shared mythology. You're creating your own mythology, your own myths. And it just, by design for, since the beginning, we have always, we've communicated and remembered via stories, which I thought was a real interesting way to kind of frame it. I like the soap opera too, though. That's good. So the Insider Insight series is my opportunity to sit down with designers, developers, artists, writers, and creators and learn how they approach their work. I try to understand their process, inspiration, and the methods for crafting their creations. And that's what we're going to do with Andrew today. So we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to talk about one of his early games, Opera House. We'll be right back. Gadzooks Gaming is one of our favorite places online to get your gaming goodies. Terrain, base inserts, miniature games like Marvel Crisis Protocol and Malifaux, jewelry, and even hand-carved wands. RPG books for Call of Cthulhu and Dungeons & Dragons, accessories and models to make your RPG session next level. They are veteran-owned and operated and help support us. So go to gadzooksgaming.com and check out all of their gaming gold. Be sure to tell them Craig from the third floor sent you. That's gadzooksgaming.com. We've already mentioned Dune, the last one, and Dune was really what piqued my interest and made me learn about Andrew and trick him into coming on the show. But as I was going through and looking through Andrew's games, there's one that in particular that I wanted to spend time with, and it's Opera House, Andrew, because I think it's a very unique setting and it's a very unique game. So for those listening that have never heard of Opera House, can you give us kind of a basic idea of the idea behind the game?
Okay, well, it's born from my own experience as a professional theatrical. I'm a lighting technician, but it's my actual real job. So I always consider myself exceptionally lucky to both have, to have my day job is one of these dream professions, and I get to be a games writer. Those things. That's
awesome.
Constantly amazing. So I put all that experience of theatre together into Opera House. It's kind of the marriage of both those experiences. I'm not good for much else, theatre and role playing. That's just all I can do, really. So the setup for this is that all of your characters have joined this place called the Royal Grand Opera House, which is a vast Gormenghast-like building that performs plays, operas, all kinds of different bits. And you've joined as any layer, this thing that was also very important to me, is you've joined as any layer of the production staff. So you can be actors, but you are stage managers, lighting technicians, sound operators, automation specialists, front of house people. There is any one of the vast army. It's not just about the actors, it's about the whole backstage experience as well. And when you join this company, you tick this little box on the form that says you're happy to do extra duties for probably an extra 10 quid a week. And you thought to yourself, well, I know what that's going to be. That's going to be I have to put the chairs away after rehearsals, or I just have to do some sweeping up, or maybe I've got to do some photocopying or something. It won't be too bad. Oh, no. Unfortunately, The thing that extra duties implies is that as well as getting all your cues right and all your things you have to do for the show correct, you also have to deal with ghosts that might try and steal the life from the audience, saboteurs from other theatres who try and ruin your show so it all goes wrong. There are Morlocks that might come up from the basement when the noise starts to find out what's going on because the theatre goes down so very far. There's even a fair few cursed props if something's been used in the Scottish play too long and an actor gets hold of it, he might want to stab some of the others. And there's and the rats are intelligent as well, and you have to do deals with them to stop them nibbling cables. So all of this stuff is going on. It's utterly insane, and the game is designed to work on 3 effective levels. So you can run it just as you would any other role-playing game. So you can run, as an adventure in the theatre. And I've got this sort of setting called Pavilion. It's designed so that you can put it into a medieval place or a modern day or a Victorian era.
Nice.
Because theatre hasn't changed for so long. But it does have its own setting of Pavilion, which is this sort of theatrical city in a sort of semi-sci-fi advanced world. And so you can play adventures in all of that, but also you can play a full one-shot adventure where you play the whole game in real time. So you say the show starts at 7:30, and that means as soon as it hits 7:30 in real time, the show is going and it's on. And as part of your prep work for that, you work out where each of your characters needs to be. And this, much to my surprise, this actually worked better than I expected it to. When I had this idea, and then I worked in playtesting, and went, oh, it actually works. I didn't really expect that. Where basically anything you want to do, if you want to run to somewhere in the theatre, the GM says, okay, that will take you 5 minutes. Everything tends to work in 5-minute blocks. So come back to me in 5 minutes' time, which usually happens by the time you've gone round what everyone else is doing, you've got back to the next person. And anything that takes a little bit longer in game time, in real time, than it would in game time, like a combat as the obvious example, you get a time ticket, which basically says if you spend that, it gives you an extra 5 minutes. So you can say, I've just looked at my cue sheet and I'm meant to be doing a scene change right now and I'm on the other side of the theatre, but I can spend my time ticket and go, actually, I'm 5 minutes ahead of where I thought I was. I've just made it on stage in time to move the set. But you work out all the things like where you're meant to be, whether you're on stage, off stage, when you're doing a scene change or you're doing other pieces, what sort of fly cues you're doing, what sort of stuff you're moving around. And some of the scenes, and you roll randomly to see what these scenes are. So you might have scenes that are only like 2 minutes long, and other ones might be half an hour long. And
that's cool.
In and around all that, you are herring around to try and get everything done. And so you have to drop things like, well, I could chase that saboteur, but I have a scene change to do in 2 minutes. So I'm going to have to let him go now, and I've got to run down to do, because there is absolutely no excuse for missing your cues. You don't get, I was chasing someone. No, you could be fired for that. So you have to do all cues.
That's cool.
And I did play
it
test
creates a timing and a tempo and a momentum, and that's a whole neat layer that you battle in so many other games. And I never would have thought of that, Andrew. It makes total, absolute sense. And then that twisted weirdness that you've thrown in there.
Yes, it's crazy. I mean, it's not as crazy as theatre usually is, but it's a nice sort of intro to some of the oddities. I have some stories, but what I play tested it with what I call my theatrical gaming group, which is a group of other fellow theatricals who we have to meet very occasionally, because sometimes one of us has got a production week or has got an extra matinee in or something. So, but we all tend to try and meet in afternoons because we're all busy in the evening, and we've been doing a lot of Zoom calls, obviously, while we've all been on furlough or not working, because theatre has been unspeakably hit by the COVID crisis. And of course that, so it's a general side thing. Of course, theatres, of course, had to shut down. Of course, we had to be worried about COVID. But my disappointment was how many of the mostly freelance industry were left behind. And I've known, very sadly, a lot of my friends, I was very lucky. I was exceptionally lucky in my theatre because I had furlough. I'm a full-time worker in mine. And so I was able to carry on, but a lot of people who were on crews or shows that collapsed or shut down had a horrendous time. But what was really, really sweet thing is I ran this game with my theatrical gaming group, and a lot of them who hadn't been able to do theatre, or none of us had for the for the year. Some of them were a little bit teary with, this feels like doing a show again, which was the best compliment I could have, where all of these theatricals felt that this was the theatre experience. That they'd go, well, I was going to say, and that of course leads into the third part of what the game is about, which is it's designed as a theatre source book. So it's the idea behind it is because I've seen a lot as the usual things that irk you in when you look at other games or movies or things where you go, I work in that industry and they don't do that. Why is that over there? Where you see things where you've got, here's a map of a theatre, but they put no dressing rooms on it, or there's no access to the dock and what have you. So I wanted to build a thing that firstly described how theatre worked, but also describe what all these various people do in it, because there are other theatre games, some really good, like by the author Lady of Windermere's Fan, and I think Robin Laws has one. There's a Shakespearean one I can't remember the title of, which are great games, but they're all very focused on the actors and what the actors are doing, which is often what it's the only bit of theatre people really know. And to a certain degree, I quite like that. It's nice being one of the magicians who knows how this technology works and how it figures, and how we can, to a certain degree. I mean, lighting itself is a way to manipulate the audience's emotions. You take the lighting and the colours, the shapes, the mood that you set is what is augmenting what the actors are doing and pushing the emotional feeling of a scene over into things. So a lot of what Opera House is about is to tell people how theatre works, and not just that, because we also describe how you put a show on, from getting people together to auditions to taking the show down at the end of the production. Wow. We go into touring theatre. I talk a little bit as well about the hell that is production week and how we get a whole show up and running before Thursday, and how all that fits together. So it's there designed to teach people how to do theatre. Mostly drawn from, I started working on it technically something like 30 years ago. I had the idea and then never kept coming back to it. But if there's been one bonus from Furlough, it was that because theatre was in such crisis, something in me was a bit more inspired to pick up Opera House and go, this is the time to finish this game. This is the time to get it done. To get it out there and do a Kickstarter, and try and spread some word about how theatre is working, and try and do maybe something to help support it if it goes well. So this is how this sort of all. I hate to use the word "say" it all poured out of me. It was, because words are because this is one of the things that is always annoying. Sometimes writing is a straightforward and simple job. Sometimes it's like wading through treacle, but there is at no point where the inspiration falls from above or anything like that. It is you just got to get words on paper.
It's work.
There's a lot of people seem to mythologize writing, and you just got to get on with it, sadly. And and even when it's going well, you're still going writing away and scribbling.
And you hear it with all kinds of. You hear it all the time, Andrew, with creation and artists, where they say, you're so lucky, you're so talented, and a lot of times people don't realize that it's work. It's work and it's practice and it's crafting, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. This is the thing I would say to everyone. It's the good news, I would always say, with things. If you want to be a writer, then you can be a writer. There is absolutely nothing stopping you, because as long as you have a basic grasp of English, you can start putting words on page, and you can start doing that right now. You can write your adventures up. You can write things. Now, being a good writer, that's the bit we're all striving for. That's the bit that takes the time. But that only comes with practice. But if you want to be a writer, and you can call yourself, and this is the important thing, you can call yourself a writer for this, because you're putting words on a page. You are a writer. You don't have to be a particular grade. There's no one's going to check you to say, are you of this appropriate standing to do it. If you want to be a writer, be one. You can do it.
Well, and to your point, Andrew, you can't become a good writer until you become a writer first, right? You've got to start.
Yeah, it's not good. You're not going to get good unless you're doing it. And sometimes, just as to say, the Neil Gaiman thing, that I think is probably something even he stole, because we all steal each thing, of that diagram, that Venn diagram of people to work with, of works brilliantly, delivers on time, is nice to work with. It says, as long as you have two of those, you'll be fine. There are far, far better writers and games designers out there than me, far, far better ones. But I have got an awful lot of work done by just delivering on time and hopefully at least people thinking I'm a nice guy to work with. And so, once you establish that, you can always get better at the last one. And you can, I mean, part of writing is just, you write away and you hope that someone will like it. But as long as you're writing for yourself and writing games you would love to play, chances are someone will enjoy playing them as well and just get on doing the thing. But persistence and writing what you love is the main thing. I've been exceptionally lucky in my writing career, if it can be referred to as such, that through a general enthusiasm and just nagging people till they give me work to a certain degree, but and the more work you do, the more work you are able to get. There will come a point in your writing career where, after having written and doing stuff and creating your own stuff, you'll pass a CV or a note to someone and you'll say, "Can I write on your game?" And they will say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of your stuff. Yeah, I'd love to have you involved." Role playing is a very small industry, and people get to know about it, and it's always quite nice. I always feel it's one of the things. One of my favourite quotes about me was one by the sadly late Steve Russell, who used to run Right Publishing, who we lost a few years ago now. He had a wonderful quote when I sent some stuff for his Lords of Gossamer and Shadow game I did some work on, and the editor who was working with me saw the stuff I'd done previously, and I had this image, "Oh my God, I didn't realise you'd done this stuff," which is like, well, it doesn't really matter. You're still my editor. It's irrelevant how much stuff I've done, you sort of thing. But Steve came with my favourite, which I would love carved on my tombstone. He said, "Andy is the most prolific writer you've never heard of."
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, Andrew, you heard it in when I was doing the introduction that, I found you through Dune, and then I started digging. I'm like, holy crap! Like, he's written everything. He's been a part of everything, which is really exciting. So before we close out on Opera House, I'd be curious. So it sounds like the pandemic and your, obviously it makes sense with your connection with theater. What was the breakthrough for you, though? Because at some point, it became real, right? It became real. It was going to be a Kickstarter, and it changed. It changed for you and became something else and became formed. Do you remember when that happened, or what may have caused that to happen?
I'm still not quite sure whether it has yet. You sort of have this thing of, occasionally you look on, particularly when you've had a game you've been having in the back of your mind, or something you've been trying to work on for so long. Every now and again I look on the shelf and go, oh, I finished that, didn't I? Oh, right. And then you pick it up and found in the first page 12 spelling mistakes and the system rule that you really would have wanted to do another way, and you think, right, second edition, here we go.
Yep.
So,
yep.
And so it's quite true, no art is ever finished. But yeah, there is a sort of weird nebulous time with any. I think it's easier with games than it is with something like novels or stories, although I still get a little bit that the few times I do fiction, where you just know, yeah, I'm done there, I can stop that bit. I've filled in all the bits I know, and this is where being a game player is the greatest help, because you can look at the game and go, if I was playing this game, if I picked this up as a customer, what am I going to read through this and go, oh, they didn't have that, or where were they missing that, or what didn't I explain about for that? So that's the thing you always keep in mind as a game designer, is you've always got to be looking from the point of view of being a gamer. But it's quite lucky that that's easy, because we all are. I don't think there's anyone in the business that is just writing games and not. I mean, we've not got time to play them. There's a lot of people that don't get the chance or as much time as they'd like to play them. Yep. And there are some people who are too busy writing to play as many games as they like. So there are some machines out there who I don't know how they write so much, and I really wish I could write as much as them. But this is, I suppose, also what comes back to the thing of when saying people have not heard of me as things, is you do see there's a mixture of writers. There is the job of your profile, and there are some writers who are very good, some who are also very talented and very prolific writers as well, who also manage to be very good at doing Twitter and Facebook marketing and self thing. But what has been really nice about this industry is I sometimes think now and again, oh God, maybe I should be better with Twitter and my website and all this sort of thing, and I would get more. But you kind of look around and go, well, it seems that the industry always knows. Other people are looking at your stuff, so you don't.
Right.
I mean, yes, it's helpful to push yourself forward is always good if you in a freelance world, but it's the work will out in the end, and I've been very pleasantly surprised to discover that when I've approached people these days, they will and say, can I do some work on the game? They'll go, oh yeah, I know your stuff, yeah, sure, see what we can find you to do. So
well, and the work stands on its own, right?
Yeah.
And the work speaks for itself. And I would imagine, Andrew, that there was many a creator out there that would have loved to do Dune for Modiphius.
Oh yes, absolutely. But I got there first, so they can't.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
again, and they may have been better at Twitter than you, and have a better branding than you do. But the work does stand on its own. So that's great. So let's take a quick break. When we get back from this break, I want to talk about Dune. I want to talk about what it's like to design in an existing IP, tying back to what we talked about earlier with Aliens. And I'm really fascinated because Andrew has played and seen a lot of games. I want to hear his take on the 2D20 system. We'll be right back. You like science fiction, right? You love playing games, maybe even role-playing games. But what if you can't get your friends together for a game night? If you love games like Mothership or Orbital Blues, check out Dead Belt, a card-based space western solo strategy RPG about skillful and desperate scavengers picking over the remains of junked starships in hopes of a juicy payday. In it, you deal with lurking dangers, push your luck, and walk away with enough cred to keep on flying. Of course, you might get eaten by lurking aliens, or run afoul of rival scavengers, or face the murderous ghosts of long-dead spacers. No one said life in the Dead Belt was going to be easy. For more information on this and all of Sean and Abby Drake's games, swing over to acoupleofdrakes.com. The link's in the show notes. So I think what I want to know, Andrew, is when did this first get on your radar? So when did you get a whiff that there was going to be a Dune RPG? And did Modiphius reach out to you, or did you show up at their door with a little bowl?
Yeah, it's more the bowl end of things. There's quite a long as you may know that there are a lot of people in the industry. Everyone in the role-playing industry kind of works for each other. It's one of the lovely things about the industry is that there isn't a thing of saying, for the most part, oh, you work for these people, you can't work for these people, or you'll know too many company secrets. I did have a long conversation with, I think, Paul Williams, Wiggy, who does a lot of, I think Triple Ace is a lot of it, and we were chatting about game things. I sort of looked and went, oh God, here am I sharing my game ideas with another industry professional. And we sort of looked at each other and said, and it doesn't matter because none of us have got time to do our own ideas, let alone steal each other's. We're never going to get around to it. So you can sit and chat about all these things forever. Now, so way back, this makes me sound older than I am, and I'm very old, that so many years ago, I used to be the line developer for Victoriana, which is still one of my favourite games that we worked on the second edition with for Cubicle 7. And it's now my friend Walt Chanowski, who's another amazing writer, is doing some more work with stuff for that. He did the third edition, and he took my baby and put it through college. It was brilliant great work. Walt and I have partnered up on loads of products, particularly for Doctor Who. So I'm rambling off a bit now, but Walt's lovely, so I'll chat about him. And it's great because he lets me I tend to be the one saying, right, I want to do this, and he just sort of goes, yeah, all right. which for me, as I'm kind of a megalomaniac when I'm doing this, he's a brilliant partner because he'll just get on with it and go, sure, I'll just do these bits. But, lets me get away with murder. It's ridiculous, but he's a great writer and he's done some amazing stuff. So I used to, when I used to run Victoriana, we had another game on the line which Chris Birch was running, which was Star Blazer, which is a huge science fiction game based on Fate. It was a really popular game as well. So I've known Chris from that for a long time, from those sort of things. And so we keep in touch. And of course, when he set up Modiphius, which is amazing to see how that's grown over comparatively such a short time, it's expanded. I mean, Chris, it's one of the downsides of the industry is that there are a lot of people get into it who are obviously they get in as games writers and designers, and very few of them have a business experience. And Chris had a lot of that business experience with t-shirt companies and things before, and I think that's a big reason for how he's been able to build Modiphius. And he's got a load of amazing people on board. The people I've been working with, Sam Webb has just handheld it through the whole experience, and they have people like Cam who runs the business end of things for Modiphius. So they've got a really great setup, and it's well deserved, the expansion they've done. But of course, when they had Star Trek Adventures, that's again, I'm a big Romulan fan, so as soon as I heard you hear whispers about things. As soon as I whispered somebody's got Star Trek, it's like, does anyone know who? Is it Modiphius? Right, Chris. How do I write for this? Who's working on it? When can I work on it? So actually you make connections that way. Then I gradually heard of, the rumour mill gradually came in my direction over Dune. Sometimes if it's a big property and you know people, somebody's bound to say, I think you're a big fan. Aren't you a big fan of this one? You probably want to talk to such. I had this as well the other way around when I did some work on one of the many Firefly games, which I'm very pleased to get involved in those, is I did a thing that was a science fiction Western setting for Eden Studios. It was a little article on how to do that because I'm a massive Firefly fan. And I got an email a little while later from Jamie Chambers, who at the time was running what would be the Serenity RPG from Margaret Weis Productions. And he mailed me because he'd got my number from Eden. And apparently the success of that article, because there were so many Firefly fans, went, there's a Firefly game I must have. And thankfully they liked what I'd done with it, but it needed a lot more expansion. The success of that was one of the things that had convinced Jamie and Margaret to go for the license. And I got a mail saying, there's a thing, we've got a license we think you'd be interested in. Are you free? Yes, I am. What is the license? It's Firefly. I'm in.
You must have lost it.
So there are plenty of times I've lost it during then. That was one of them. So to work on that one. And then it said, oh, would you like to do the setting chapter? Yes, I would. Thank you very much. So I crafted all this. I basically got to build the world of Firefly. While they were working on the rules. Yeah, that's just amazing. And then I got to work on the Firefly game as well that Monica Valentinelli was running again for Margaret Weis Productions. So I've now done 3 Firefly games, and I would happily work on a 4th. But yeah, so you hear these rumors come round sometimes too many, because sometimes you hear things and you go, oh, how did you hear that? I mean, I was at Games Expo, and I'd had a very surreptitious conversation with, I think, Chris, because I'd heard about it. And the first I heard about it, I didn't go to Chris to say, I've heard, if the rumour's true, I don't know if it's not, if the rumour I've heard is true, please can I work on it? Count me in. I'm all over this. I'd love to be involved. And he says, okay, I'll add you to the no doubt very long list he's got of people who have also said exactly the same thing. But by that time, because I was working with Cubicle 7 at the time as well, this one of the other people I was working with came up and said, oh, guess what? I've heard Modiphius has got Dune. And I'm like, I don't want to say anything because I was sworn to secrecy. I was saying, where did you hear that? Well, I heard it from that guy over there. So how did they know? And it's like,
yeah. So
yeah, it's very difficult to keep secrets in this industry. It's very difficult. But yeah, so I basically, to be fair, I basically nagged I said, can I, which is, to be fair, how I get most of my work. I just nag people eventually to say, all right, we've got a spot. There's something nobody else wants to do. Would you? Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Believe it or not, Andrew will bug us less if he's working for us.
yeah, it's pretty much, it is pretty much that. I mean, it's like luckily I enjoy doing these, but I think it was like Michael Caine said of his career or something. It's like, how have you become this big movie star? He said, I just didn't say no to anyone, and you see Michael Caine's been in a lot of really awful things. I'd like to think, I don't think I've ever written for a game I would consider awful. I've got nothing to do with Fatal. And I think I'd stand by even some of the work. I did some work on the Race U game many times, which is one of the ones renowned as one of the worst games, although mostly for some of the ways that was marketed didn't work. But I would still stand by the work I did on that, to be honest. So yeah, there's very few games where you go, oh God, take my name off that, because there's a lot of, it's very hard to really ruin a role-playing game, I'd argue. I mean, some people manage it, but you have to work quite hard. If you love something that much, you can't do it. So yeah, so
Chris says. I'm sorry, Andrew. Chris says to you, hey, yeah, Andrew, let's do this. Let's you make Dune. And I have no idea how that process starts. So does he just say, look, Andrew, I want to do Dune. I want it to be 2D20, or how does that conversation even start?
Well, for me, I came in somewhere in the middle with Dune because one of the reasons I got the work that I was doing as an initially project manager, I'm sort of shifted into a creative lead now, as we sort of shuffled, everything sort of bubbles and shuffles around a little bit as everyone finds the right niche for things. And a lot of this was coming was because they were getting involved in these things, and it hadn't had enough movement over the time, and so they realized they needed to have someone to come in and push for it. Really, someone needed to be basically watching the pot and try and push some of the stuff. Now, the actual design, of course, has come from effectively the official 2D20 designer, which is Nathan Dowdell, who has done some amazing. He is the core designer for Modiphius' stuff, so he is the 2D20 system, and he takes each version of that and he adapts it each time. So, like Cortex Plus,
which I love,
another favourite of mine, it's not that thing, whereas it used to be. I remember back in the 80s when games had these sort of house systems, and it would be a case of, right, this company, I mean, it wasn't so bad. Chaos, even was one of the ones who would do this. It's fine because BRP will fit pretty much anything. But it was a case of if Chaos got the license, it was BRP. If it was anything to do with TSR, it would be a variant of D&D. And often these settings would get quite crowbarred into a rule set that really wasn't designed to do anything other than just work. And they did work, but you won't look at the old, I mean, actually it wasn't quite the same thing, but Fassa's version of the original Doctor Who, it just didn't have that right feel. I played it, loved it, got all of it, because I'm a big Doctor Who fan, but that one just didn't really have the feel of Doctor Who until you got the things. And then you had games like Time Lord, where they'd done a new thing, but you didn't have character creation, but it had a great feel to it. What is wonderful about the 2D20 system is that they take it and they adapt the system, which is kind of a concept rather than a hardcore set of rules, and make it work for the way that game wants it to run. So, Star Trek's fast and friendly, but you want to add spaceships in it. Very different beast to how Conan runs, but both of them, you can still see that same core of 2D20. So Nathan had crafted these rules before I came on board. But he's not a big Dune fan, so I sort of brought in as someone who could be the fanboy in charge sort of thing. I mean, we're all sort of so I could try and push and just make sure now do some of the line development thing, and this is the things people don't really see in role playing. And some of it is still even a mystery to me. These things where it's like you need to get the manuscript by this date, that needs to have art by this date, it needs to have layout, that layout needs to be matched to the printer's templates, those printers. Then you need to work out your logistics, how you're going to get your crate of books back from one place to the other, and which distribution thing. There is, the first thing I learnt when I started getting into games design and professional games writing and production was that despite 20-30 years of being a gamer, I knew absolutely nothing. There is, a lot of people imagine, I know the industry because I've been playing games. No, absolutely nothing at all. how the systems work, what is expected of a manuscript, what levels, and how these games get onto your shelf and there is an army of people who get nowhere near the kudos they should get. I mean, this is one of the ones I keep coming back to in things, is that in my day job as a lighting technician, I see things one way around because all the actors are the ones that people follow and go, oh, you're an actor, and I go, well, I just worked 14-hour days to get this show in for the last 2 weeks. I think I'm a part of it. Whereas in role-playing, I'm the other way around. I'm used to the writers and the artists because, oh, you're a writer and the artist. So I'm always very cognizant that I am simply one part of this. Luckily it's the bit I enjoy. But a lot of other people are not getting anywhere near the respect and the recognition they deserve. Logistics people, editors, editors take manuscripts and, do amazing things with them, and it's something that we don't celebrate enough in role playing, and it's very difficult to do. But the people who are good at that, they get known very quick because they are gold dust, absolute gold dust. I see,
and for the same reasons we talked about, right? Because they deliver.
Yes, I mean, there's a number of times I was very lucky enough to do this once when Gen Con did the sort of guest speaker thing. There was always had a bit of a thing to it because whatever list they produced, somebody would go, oh, what are they doing on the list? Which is all rubbish because everyone who did these things deserved to be there, and I think it was very well put together, and they put together variety, and I would apply each time, and I was very lucky to have put in the right things at one point to because it was all done purely on what seminars you were going to run, and I'd done
right.
I think interested in particularly this one year was realised, I'd done a degree in religion, so that's useful how it applies, and that I think was what the interest. But I also had to look at the list of things and think it was irrelevant how much experience I'd done because I'm a role-playing writer. They're 10 a penny. Throw a rock. There's hundreds of them out there, and there's some amazing ones and some brilliant ones, but there's not any insights I as a writer can share that another 20 other writers can't really share. But find a layout person, a logistics person, production, an editor, find those people and get them to tell you how this business actually works. Then you can really learn something fascinating from them. Because we all kind of know how writing works and how pictures come together.
So, Andrew, you come into the game, and it sounds like the wheels had already started, but you have the passion, the love, the universe. When I get my copy of Dune and I start flipping through it, where am I going to see your fingerprints? Where do you think I will see Andrew?
Well, after so long with it, they're everywhere. As I said before, I'm a creative megalomaniac. So I tend to, when I get involved in things, I like to get my fingers in everything possible. I think it's the theatre thing. I like to know where everything is. And you've also, sometimes you get burned with things, but there are sometimes you've worked on projects where you've gone, the thing you didn't look at was the thing that went wrong. Not that I'm the genius that's going to fix everything, but you also think, that was the bit I wasn't looking at. I could have sorted that. So after all, as running as a project, you find you're filling in all the gaps. I mean, but I have to say, obviously, it's no surprise that when I looked down the list of things that weren't yet assigned for writers, I went, I'm doing that one. Benny Talalux, Face Dancers, I'm all over that one. And they're my favourite. They're horrible. I always love the really horrible ones. But Jason Jurell wanted to do the Guild, but if he hadn't, I would have been all over that one as well. So you have to fight very hard with it. As approaching it from a writer point of view, I also had to fight very hard with not filling in and assign. So, for instance, I set it when we came to writing up the characters. So you're writing up Duke Leto, Lady Jessica, Princess Irulan, and all that. And I was looking at it going, right, I was geared up, right, okay, somebody needs to write this and another 8,000 words of this one. And I thought, no, hold on, get somebody else to do this because I need to check the logistics and the printing and
right.
editing and all the other bits and pieces. I do not have time to add another writing thing to this if this is going to hit deadline. So stop it. Give it to somebody else who I'll be eternally jealous of. They were great. I think it was Simon Berman did that one for me. So you put these things together, and I've got to get on with not boring, because you watch this whole book come together. You see all these bits and pieces from loads of different writers, loads of different great stuff, and you see it all merging together. And of course, we've also had the advantage of now we haven't sat and watched the movie or anything like that. Wow, I'd love to do that. I'm so looking forward to seeing this. But we have had a few things from Legendary to show us what some things are going to look like, which have just blown me away, because we've mixed with the art has been our art and the movie art put together, and you'll see that whole thing.
That's so cool.
It's the best of both worlds, because there are things we would want to describe in the book that may or may not be in the film, but if we need to describe them, we might need an art or a look for that. And of course, if it's not in the film, then we go, you can't do it. Whereas what's been great for us, and of course the other way around, if we produce a book that's all our own vision, then people come out of the films, things that people are going to look at and go, well, what's all that look different? That's not the... I picked this book up because I saw the film.
Yeah.
So we've got the best of both worlds. They've been great. They said, here's the look of stuff. Here's what, things like the Residency or Arakeen is going to look like, some of the spaceships and costumes and things. And we get to look at those bits and pieces, model our stuff on that, and follow that design aesthetic. But when we want to build something that we haven't seen, either because it's not in the movie or we just haven't been allowed to see it because we're not privy to everything. This is another sort of misnomer of the games thing. We are not having tea with Denis Villeneuve or anything like that. This is I think they've really liked what we've done, thankfully, but it's hard, I think, for a lot of gamers to realize that we're part of their marketing budget.
Right.
We are a tiny, even though this game, we've got thousands of copies out there, and we've printed so much stuff, and they're amazing books, but it's still mugs and pencils and calendars in the category. So and we are a very small part of things, but no. So we've got to do our parts to this as well. We can fill in our own gaps, and then they of course check it and go, yeah, we like what you've done. I mean, for instance, one that was quite nice is our Carino logo is one that we made, which was really good. So we worked through. That was Chris Webb's amazing design for that one. So it's a wonderful position to be in for that, and it's just been nice to be at the start of this game and see a major license like this come together, because it has been a very big tick box I wanted to tick off on my writing career I would love to run a big line, and then look at around things, think what things are out there that haven't already been done or something, and then suddenly something comes up, you go, oh, Dune. What, someone's doing that? Yeah, I didn't think,
that's incredible.
Didn't think anyone would do it, but there it is. And so I've tweaked and fiddled. There are some bits I've taken on some of Nathan's design. I've fiddled about with a bit because it's what writers do. Some bits I've thought, we need to, Jason Durrell and I as well have looked at some of the things that, as Dune fans, we've looked at some things and thought, no, we need a bit more emphasis on this or emphasis there. Not that Nathan's design was needing or lacking anyway. It's a great thing, but sometimes we've put a slightly different twist, or we've done some play testing to go, maybe we need a little bit more like that. But essentially, it was all there from when we came in, really.
That's great.
And then we've just filled in. There are lots of little bits. I feel it's like I've been in the position where I would just sort of put it's like having a big wall, and where you see cracks, you put in a bit of filler now and again, or go, we just need another section on that, or maybe we should point something out about that. But so I did lots of little bits and pieces, but particularly the Chilaxi was mine because I'm a big fan of them.
I'd be curious, Andrew, and I would imagine you had to do this with Doctor Who and some other things that you've written for, but especially for Dune, what is it like working with the people on the other side, the people in charge of the IP, the people that are going to approve things or sign off on them, the people outside of Modiphius?
Well, that very much varies on the licensor in question. This is the thing that's sometimes problematic, is very few of them really understand role-playing and really know quite what it is. So quite a lot of them, there is an element of showing them what it is and how it works, and sometimes they'll come back with things that are problematic from their understanding point of view. But usually with just a little bit of working through hand holding and the like, that you can explain these things quite easily. And in my experience from things, that pretty much all the licenses usually absolutely love the things you do in the end. When they see that book and they go, oh, this is what you guys were on about.
Isn't that something?
I see what you're doing now. And it makes a bit more sense, because it's so difficult to explain role-playing anyway. And I think some of the difficulties as well come from the other thing that is very nice to see as well, is that the reason you are doing a license is because the people in charge of this license love this property. And any problems that you do have with you wanting to do one thing and then wanting to do it another way or something like that, and ultimately you have to do the way they, you have to follow their vision. It's their stuff. It doesn't belong to us.
Yep.
And sometimes when those things come, it is because they love this thing and they want to make sure you are doing the right service to something they deeply care about. So there's very few times you will come across any role-playing thing. You always get this vision of these cold companies going, oh yes, we're just in it for the money. Very few of them. I mean, obviously they want to make money, and they make a lot more money than we do doing these things, but very few of them, and none of the ones I've worked with have ever been just, do what you want and pay us the license fee or something.
Right.
Not a single one. They all care about getting this right. They care about the status of their property. They care about the core of their property, and they care about what we're saying about their property, because we have to go into things so much more. I mean, a lot of them are quite taken aback with the amount of detail we need to go into, because if you see board games or even comics or things, you're saying it's just, what's that story, and the level of stuff that we need to look at, and they're like, oh,
so true.
But then at the same time they look at it and they'll go, wow, you guys have got this. I mean, it was quite a nice thing to hear that for stories. I've got more stories for that interest me. For Doctor Who, I hope Don won't mind me sharing some of these. Is that there was the two that were particularly entertaining. Is that when we did the Doctor Who role-playing game with Cubicle 7, the BBC liked what we'd done, but they didn't know whether it was any good as a role-playing game, because they've only got us to talk to. And we tell them it's great and it's amazing, but they go, well, of course we would. So there was a secret inter-BBC role-playing group got briefly set up. They put out a little internal memo to say, if you're a role player and you work for us, would you come? We'd like to hear from you. And put this small group together, people that they knew were on their side but knew about role-playing, who could have a go at the Doctor Who, and they all played, wow, there's a Doctor Who role-playing game, we're all over this. And they got to play test a little bit of it. And thankfully, thank God, they enjoyed what they played in the BBC. Went, okay, that's fine, we've checked.
That's cool.
But the other thing that was just always a wonderful thing to hear, because we, as Cubicle 7, as you know, they did a source book for every Doctor. So we managed to go through all of them, and it's something I'm particularly proud to have been involved with, because I think I did 7, half of 4, and half of 12 with Walt Chinaski again. Walt and I do stuff, and it was great to be a part of that. Not only because we managed to do all of them with mostly the same look, the same format. They're a set. And so often, you will have seen this in role-playing as well, that you see a set of, say, the source books for the countries or the source book for the secret societies or something. And the first book that comes out is completely different to the last book that comes out, because they've changed things. We managed to get that same format through all of them, and they're a one-off lump body of work. Brilliant. But apparently the BBC did come back and say at one point quite casually, I don't know if they still do this, but they say, we've started using those as our Bibles. If we want to double check a fact or an episode or a thing, we nip to where you've got those source books and we double check what you guys did. So because they're so complete, they're so full of all the detail, and they're every episode put in order together. So when you hear things like that from your licensors, you go, that's just amazing.
That's so
cool. And it's been one of the things that's been marvelous with Dune. I mean, it does take a little bit extra time, but we have actually Joe LaFavi, who is our brand manager, and he is run ragged doing getting the approval things around the various companies, because there's Legendary and there's the Herbert Estate and various people. But we have had responses, through all these various intermediaries from Brian Herbert, Ken Jansen, and I think it does. I don't know if he reads much of it, but I think it does cross Denis Villeneuve's desk. So it's amazing for us to know that it is not just going to a mug and pencil licensing guy. This is going to some of the people who actually are crafting, crafted
amazing.
this thing we love, and they're at least having a look and going, I think it's right, and in some cases coming back with some notes on it. So it's it's been great to get that insight from our point of view, and it's been great they've been so on board with this. And so
I've got a crazy hypothetical for you. Oh, go ahead, Andrew. Please continue.
I say it would be, it'd be quite easy for them to go, oh, we're bored of this now. But they've very much got into it, and they've been so supportive of what we're trying to do.
Just getting those notes has got to be exciting.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
So I've got a strange hypothetical for you, and I've been trying to think how I want to craft this. So in the first segment, we talked about you diving into the Alien book and finding this one little kernel that you got all excited about how they mark XP. And we, talk about how that tells you even more, right? So here's the hypothetical. A clone of Andrew who didn't work on Dune gets Dune and starts going through it. It's the first time somebody like you has gone through it. What's the kernel that he's going to find? So what is something that you think is inside of that Dune that people that love role-playing games and are prolific consumers like you are, what is something that you think in there is just pretty damn clever or really special?
Well, I mean, the first thing my clone will have to do is get over the fact he didn't get to work on it, so he's going to be really upset about that. I'd be beside myself, quite literally, actually. Oh, that's a awful pun. The two things I particularly love about this game that what's come from Nathan's design are one is it's very much a 2D20 thing that's in everything, and one is a very particular Dune thing of how we've adapted 2D20. The one I particularly love is the difficulty 0 roll. Now, if you just sort of explain 2D20, you get your pool of D20s. You start with 2, you can build it up with these points called momentum. And you roll against a difficulty number. The dice will generate successes if they roll the right target number. Sometimes they can, if you get a critical, they can roll more. And the more successes you get, the better. Now, if you get more successes than you need for than the difficulty number that you need to get. So if the difficulty is 2 and you get 4 successes, you get to add 2 momentum points to your pool. Now, these momentum are very much represent the momentum you gain from doing lots of successful rolls. So if your characters are literally on a roll, they build their pool, and they use these points to then buy more dice for their pool and get better at things. It's like the way when things are going well, you can keep going well because you can use that literal momentum to aid you in the next dice roll. Now, what is interesting in 2D20 is it has a difficulty 0 roll. Now, on the offset, you think, well, hang on, what's the point of that? Because if it's difficulty 0, I don't need any successes to pass, so I've succeeded. So what's the point of that? Now, the first point is it allows you to generate momentum. But the reason you're generating that momentum is because what you have a difficulty 0 roll for is all that stuff that player characters do when they walk into a scene. So let's say your characters have come into a party. Now, 9 times in most other role-playing games, I hate to use the term most other role, as if, other people have got very good systems for doing these things.
Right, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to start doing this. Oh, other games that aren't as good as Dune. But it's a very rare one to find. Is that usually the first thing the players do is, I want to go around the room and I want to chat to some people. I want to find out some rumors. I want to see who the big players are. I want to see who's here, who hates who, and get a lie of the land. And the GM goes, oh, hell. So now I've got to roll. What am I going to do? Roll some random rumors? Or am I going to say which person you're going to talk to? I'm going to have to create about 20 NPCs to give you options. Yep. I'm going to play out something. Now, all this is good role-playing. But also, if you've been there for an adventure, this is all detracting from the stuff you want to do. Now, in 2D20, what you can do is the GM can say, okay, you're coming into the party. There's no particular problems. I'm going to let you do a difficulty 0 momentum roll. Now, you roll that. You gain. If you do well, and this represents how well you have surveyed the party. How many people you've chatted to. If you only get like 2 momentum points from it, maybe no one was really talking to you, or you were a bit tongue-tied. If you can fill up your dice pool with all 6 momentum, then yeah, you were life. So you chatted a load of people, made a few new friends, got a few ideas. Then when you come to make an actual roll, it's like, right, I am going to now have a go at the enemy we've got. I'm going to challenge him to a duel because that's what we've come for. And when you make that challenge and you do your conflict roll or test for this and throw momentum, you're spending those points from what you've actually known. So you can go,
right.
Well, this momentum point is because that guy told me a rumor that you're sleeping with this guy's wife. And there's another momentum point here tells me that those people never liked you anyway. And I know all about that.
So cool.
And all of this stuff together, you can role play all these points, and all of them put together represent, and you can adapt this for not just surveying a party, but surveying a battlefield, checking out your spaceship before you do a technical run, or checking out the engine room before you repair things. Difficulty 0 rolls could be any time the players do those really awkward, I want to check things out and see if I can just get an advantage. I mean, that's usually what they're after. And it's quite fair that they want to do that, to get an advantage, to just say, oh, well, I've checked things, so I get some extra points because I understand what's going on now and how well I understand. It's very difficult to find a guide to say how well you understand that. But in 2D20, you've got this difficulty 0 momentum roll, and how much momentum you've got, which you can spend on other things later as and when you like, is giving you that how well you did. And you can adapt it from there as well. So if you say, oh, you're at a party, you go, tell you what, it's not going to be difficulty 0, because actually everyone at this party hates you because your house is enemy. So I'm going to make it difficulty 2, but there's no problem for failing. So, if you don't make the difficulty 2, well, nobody was talking to you. You didn't get any momentum. So, those... that mixture of obtain information, I think we call it as well, the difficulty 0 momentum roll, is one of my favorite aspects of 2D20, and that's for all the 2D20.
What I love about that, Andrew, is I've learned as a player and as a GM, I love when you mechanize something, right? So like you said, you go into the party and let's mechanize that. Let's put a roll behind it. Let's do something mechanical to represent this. But I love it when there's a full circle there. There's a cycle. So we've got a mechanic, but it can be, it then feeds the role playing, which has a mechanic. And that's a wonderful cycle. Wonderful cycle.
There's a lot of things, particularly in Dune, but I think it counts for most 2D20, where you've got, and this is my favorite things, you've got a solid game system underneath, which means you can then role play and narrate on top of it. So you can then start deciding what these think points represent very easily. You can create and craft the role play around it, but you're not left with the other end of the scale where you go, we've got all this narrative, but there's nothing underneath it to get there. I'm a big fan, for instance, of Fiasco. It's a great game, phenomenal bit of work, and I've always loved playing it. But you still get to that point where you start the game and you go, right, okay, we created these characters, we've got this great story, all these links, our characters are all complete arseholes, it's going to be brilliant. And right, start off with scene 1. What's scene 1? And you go, right. Ooh, what is scene 1? I have to think about this. And you have this, Cubicle 7 as well did the excellent Hobbit Tales game. And it's one I'm always guarded against because that's another one where you've got a narrative game that has points and a structure underneath it. Because you have these games, and we've all got the friend. I've usually corrupted most of mine because I don't shut up about it, as you can tell. But a lot of gamer groups have got the one or two friends who go, this looks interesting, but I'm a bit scared about it. And a lot of people are quite scared about it. Role-playing is an intimate thing, and you've got to put yourself out there and throw your ideas out there, and it's very easy to feel that you're going to get mocked for that, or everyone's going to say you've done the wrong thing or something. And you see all these weird arcane rule books with you think, oh God, I'm not going to get this. It can be very, very daunting, and I completely appreciate that. And so that you convince them to do one of these narrative games, and a lot of these ones go, oh, it's easy, you just tell a story. And then you go, but I don't know what to say. And then they all say, oh, but it's easy. They go, but it isn't. And then they rush off and they never play this game again. So there are some wonderful games. Hobbit Tales is one of them. The Lord of the Pies Umlaut is another brilliant game where it is narrative, but it has a system underneath it to make sure that if you don't know what to do on your turn, you can just say, I pick that option and roll a dice or draw a card, and this happens, next person.
Yep.
Then you listen to a cycle of this, and you go next time around, or maybe I'm going to describe this as a rehearsal scene, or I'm going to describe this as a party. And everyone can go, yeah, give us more. Do it. And then you can gradually wind your friends in onto this thing, and then get to hear their stories. Because this is what we miss when people are frightened off roll, scared off role play.
Exactly.
Is we miss the stories they were going to tell us. Because everyone's got some stories somewhere in them that they want to share and tell, and and we're missing out on them if we don't let them in.
Well, I agree. And I'll tell you what backs up your thoughts on that, Andrew, is you look at the progress that Morningstar did with Fiasco. You look at the different iterations of Fiasco, and it appears, I haven't, John's booked for the show, I haven't talked to him yet, but it appears that he recognized that because he, with the card system and things like, he's kept adding things to it to help facilitate and put some mechanics behind it. But I completely agree with you on that. It's, well, like you said, it's great to have both. And the 2D20 system, the flexibility it gives you, the ability, the narrative of both the pools that both the GM and the players get to use, and the ability to turn that and pull that around is absolutely fascinating. And I love, to your point, that it's a little bit different with each iteration, with each game. So it's molded to fit the game. It's very different in... Yeah, very different in Conan than it is from Star Trek. And it should be, because there's two different stories being told there.
Okay, so the other thing I was talking about, the second thing that is my particular favourite, and this is the Dune specific thing, is what we're calling architect and agent play. Now what this does is, because we've separated out, let's start this again, that in most of the games we've got to build your target number for your D20s. You take 2 attributes from your character. Now, these are very different depending on which 2D20 game you pick. So in Conan, it's one of your physics. It's more like the D&D stats of strength, dexterity, and a skill. Star Trek adapted that with having your bravery or your command and your skill type things as well. Mix things up a little bit. Now, in Dune, what we've done is completely divorce the physical aspect of your character. So what we do is have drives and skills. So there's a little bit come from one of my all-time favourite games, which is Smallville, which is another one I will go on at great length about. Cam Banks did amazing, groundbreaking work with Smallville.
Isn't that funny?
And we've taken some of it for Dune as well, as a definite influence. So what you do is it's not just important what you're doing, it's why you're doing it. So is this about justice? Is it about power? What's your character driving for? So we've got this role-playing element to every skill that you do. Now, the thing that makes this particularly special and particularly coded to Dune is that a lot of the times in Dune we're talking about puppet masters manipulating from the scenes. You have characters in Mentats, Guild Navigator, amazingly clever, prophetic characters that are sort of manipulating and pointing assets. Now, what this allows us to do, because we have based a lot of the system around using assets, using tools to get a job done, and divorced the physical aspect of your character having to be there, we can now allow you to do both what we call agent and architect play. So if you want to go in as a character, if you've got so the most obvious example is you want to go and fight the baddie in some sort of safe house somewhere. Now you can pick up to do this conflict, because we call it conflict rather than combat, because we've got layers for doing espionage and intrigue and all kinds of other things. It all works on the same basic system. But let's say the simplest option of this is a combat. So you go into this, you could bring your knife with you and go in as an agent, where I'm going to be facing the guy, look him straight in the eye, stab him with the knife. That's going to be how I'm going to play this combat out. However, what you could also do is go, I'm going to send in my group of soldiers to take him down. And what this allows you to do is play as an architect. So now you're using exactly, this is where it's wonderful, exactly the same system. You're both rolling battle plus drive to succeed in the task. But because you're using different assets and they use it in different ways, you can apply them in different ways. And the fallout from this depends not on, there's no specific rules differentiation between these until you get to the fallout afterwards. Now, if you are an agent, obviously you're there. If you fail this role, you can get stabbed, you can get killed yourself. The architect, he's safe, he's fine, he's miles away, they can't touch him. However, if things go wrong in a different way, say your enemy manages to escape, the agent is on the ground, he can go, right, I've got something else, I can chase him, I can see figures like that, I can stop something. The architect is going, well, I've just got a group of soldiers in play here. If they don't take default, or if somehow they're neutralized as part of that conflict, I've got nothing. I can't change it up, I can't improvise, I can't sort something. So there's different advantages and disadvantages to doing it. It is not something that's defined by the GM saying, right, you have to approach this as architects. It is purely player-based.
Oh, that's cool.
You say to the players, how are you approaching this? This is the problem. Here's the difficulty that's going on. And then you say to the players, what assets and skills are you going to use, and how are you going to approach this? So you can even mix it up. Half the players go in with knives, half of them send in drones and soldiers and things. And it's perfectly Dune. And it's one of the things I focused on, because again, it's a story I'm sharing of other gamers I've gamed with who I hope they won't mind me naming drop, but one of my friends, Greg, who I played in my game of not this version of Dune, but the original version of Dune, which obviously is pride of place on my bookshelf as well. Very pleased that I got a copy of that myself. It is a great setting. Obviously, I think our one's better, but I have to say that as well. But no, there are some things I drew from that one. But we played. I'm one of the few people that actually played it rather than just speculated on eBay. And I had my friend Greg, massive Dune fan, loved playing a Mentat. And as soon as we would do something in the game, Greg would say, right, I'm getting into the security camera zone and I'm watching on the monitors, while all the other players would be going in and effectively doing the adventure. And he would do this for every session. And to the point that I had to say, when we were walking home from the bus, I had to say to him, just to check, I mean, you seem okay with the game, but am I failing as a GM to give your character a good reason to go in? Because you're always in the security zone and you're always a little bit divorced from what's going on. And I'm not quite sure if, are you okay with that? How is that working? Because my fear obviously was that I wasn't giving his character the right in, and he was having a less good game because he couldn't find a way to get involved in the group. And he said, no, his basic thing is he just loved being a mentor. This is a wonderful bit of role-playing. It didn't matter whether or not he was doing the adventure. He just wanted to be the mentor in there, checking on the security cameras, manipulating from the scenes. And so I always have Greg in mind crafting this, thinking, well, now in this version of Dune, he gets to do something. The security cameras themselves could be an asset. We can say, well, because I am looking on the security cameras, I can affect the rolls for this. I can make a roll because I can see something going on and I can communicate with the other characters. And it's been that mixture of styles has been something I thought, yes, because I wanted to make this game for Greg as well as all the other characters who had gone in for that. And that's been a very important part of it.
That's really neat. And it gives... And I love a couple things I like about that. One is the different modes of play, right? That I can, and I'm still rolling. I'm still impacting the scene. I'm still impacting the narrative through that. I also like the fact that it doesn't regulate to you're always A or you're always B. It sounds like you have the ability to choose at different moments to decide which of the two modes you're going to work from. But mechanically, it's all the same.
I mean, this is the thing that has actually confused a lot of people. I've just recently started doing a blog article, and there was a podcast I did a little while ago where they specifically wanted to talk about architect-agent play, because that had a lot of people saying, what do we do with this? And it's a bit of an oversight in the book, is because they use exactly the same system, we kind of forgot to say they're the same. So people see the architect-agent bit, and they go, great, how do I do these? It doesn't say which way around I do this. The reason it doesn't is because you use exactly the same system. It just depends what assets you use. But of course, we didn't realize that we hadn't spelled that out as specifically as we should have done in that one. A lot of people, because you're used to games that say, now you're in X mode, you use this rule system, and now you're in other mode, you use it. And people are looking, all that role-playing experience kind of works against you. And you go, oh, how do I know what mode I'm in? How do I know what setting I'm in? Say, oh, well, it's up to you, and you do the same as you normally do. The only difference it makes is what you've done afterwards and how it all plays out. And just remember whether you're there or distant different things.
Oh, that's cool. You almost made it too elegant.
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of the problem. I mean, Nathan did it a little bit too well with that one, and then
Isn't
we didn't
that
think,
funny?
oh, we should describe this a bit better. So yes, that's been one of the things that people have come out with.
So guys, we're going to take one more break. When we get back from this break, I want to, if you haven't picked up on it yet, Andrew has written a lot of stuff. So I want to talk to Andrew about some other things that he's worked on that he's excited about. And I also want to take advantage of the fact that Andrew has been involved with this hobby on both sides, as a consumer and as a creator, for a very long time. I want to talk to him about where we are right now as a hobby. We'll be right back. This is the part of many podcasts where someone comes on, interrupts the show, and explains that you should consider paying for the content that you're listening to right now for free. That pitchman explains by giving $1 or more a month, you not only support the show, but you allow the show to grow and improve. Here on the third floor, we refuse to interrupt your episode of Tabletop Talk with such time-wasting pleas. We pledge never to run a spot asking you to go to patreon.com and give $1 or more a month, because supporting content creators keeps the content coming. Even if there is a link in the show's description, and there is, we don't ask you to click it and become a patron. We don't waste time rambling about the benefits like early access to episodes, getting episodes without ad breaks like this, or even getting a chance to play in one of Craig's RPG sessions. Anyway, enjoy this episode knowing Tabletop Talk, despite being supported by its patrons, won't engage in such blatant appeals for support. So during the break, Andrew and I were talking, and I explained to him I could talk to him for 4 hours. Like I said, I looked through his list, and like I could do a whole podcast on your work on Doctor Who, right? And just going that, but we're not going to do that. But I would be curious, when you look at all of the other things that you've created, when you look at things that you've been a part of, are there particular highlights, things that you look back on because either you're exceptionally proud of it, or what might even be more interesting is the impact working on that had to the work you're doing now. So how it really helped you hone your craft.
Wow. Oh, so many because it's like a thing as my partner said, there was a quote that she loved about music where someone said, what do you mean it's a bad year for music? Every year is the best year for music, because every year you have everything that's come before and all the new stuff. And it is the same for role-playing. It's exactly the same. There is pretty much every project you get involved in, you go, this is really... Sometimes even ones that that you sidestep with. I mean, for instance, I'm not a massive Judge Dredd fan, but I've enjoyed Judge Dredd. And I ended up working with Ian Publishing and I did the Robot Wars for the Judge Dredd role-playing game. Mostly this came about because I said, when I looked down the list of properties, I said, you've got Robusters. I kind of like crazy robots. That sounds fun. Yeah. And then it was Angus at the time was running things, and Russ said to me, the first book for Judge Dredd is the Robot Wars. Do you want to write that one? And I go, well, I suppose so, if that's the robot one. I've never even heard of this story before, because my experience in 2000 AD was reading lots of little bits. It wasn't the one I got regularly, so I'd get random stories. And the wonderful thing with Judge Dredd as a property is you can pick up just that story, read that story, and you now know, it's like maybe even the worst, it's 9 issues worth of Judge Dredd story, and you now know absolutely everything you need to know about that property, about that book and the setting. So you don't need to read the entire backstory of Judge Dredd to do this story. I've got everything in that one thing. Everything's very modular. You don't have to read every single Judge Dredd story. I still haven't. I'm trying to catch up. And I had a whale of a time writing that. But it was a bit of a thing. It's like, oh God, I've got to write a whole book. I'm usually this is the secret to having a prolific backstory. Write lots of little bits for lots of different people. I kind of cheated. This one was I had to write the whole book on my own. I was like, oh God, how am I going to hit the word count? You always think this every time you start a project. Am I going to hit the word count? Am I going to write enough? Is it going to be good? Am I going to just pad it? And I love writing. I could write the most gonzo, crazy robot stuff. Just really let go. This is what I loved. It's what I've fallen in love with doing for 2000 Edits. Every time we do another thing, they've done some amazing stuff. And I love getting asked to do it because every time I do, it's something really crazy and weird where you can go as far as you like with it. Obviously, the two things that will be some of the most special projects I've worked on will be the first things I actually got a professional in-print thing. And there's nothing that beats that to a certain degree. I did the first stuff I actually saw was a little section in the Buffy role-playing game Monster Smackdown, where I was on with the playtester forum for that. I mean, so I'd done some bits. I'd done some stuff for Valkyrian magazine, which is the thing I used to live house share with the editor, and so I'd nag him to do reviews and things. It's another good way to get in, live with the right people. So I was on the forum for Eden Studios. They had a playtest forum where we'd look at some of the bits and pieces. And I said, I happened to mention, it'd be nice to have, human vampire hunters. You've got a section on vampires. I've got a section on humans who are, not slayers or anything, just the ordinary people doing it. I went, yeah, that's good. Can you do 1,000 words? Oh, yeah, I can. And they went, yeah, we like that. We'll put it in the book. Really? You will?
Holy cow.
God. Holy cow. And those sort of things give you more confidence. You do things. And then I did the other thing was getting into 7th Sea, which this is a tougher fight because there's a lot of other things like that. But as I will fight anyone on Pendragon is the best system ever made, 7th Sea is for me the best setting ever made. I am absolutely in love with that game. I have nagged John incessantly. I do finally have something in 2nd edition coming up. He finally relented. But I used to write for 7th Sea, so my first stuff was for that, and I wrote Lawrence Liu's Temple of Longing. It's in a book called Strongholds and Hideouts, and I got to read the Temple of Longing, which was Lawrence Liu's sort of hideaway, and with it, they let me write a fetish dungeon as the Villanova's prison. This is Nancy Bowman was running at the time, and
that's funny.
Material. I had a horrific set of bad guys. So this prison is basically flooding, and the prisoners are kept occupied by continually pumping out the prison that's hidden, which keeps them exhausted, so they can't. But the two people who run it are of the Dachi. They're such unpleasant people. They're both sort of both into a sort of very nasty end of D&D, because D&D stuff isn't like this usually, not like 50 Shades of Grey. But they take bets on which prisoners are dying and this whole sort of all this sort of nasty thing over the top. And I was like, oh, are you okay with this? Yeah, no, we like it. Let's keep going. And then of course I've done, having my own first game, the one I'm still waiting to find it turn up in a high school locker, is Pie Shop, which is a book I would still stand by. It is easily the nastiest and most unpleasant thing I've written. It is quite horrific. There are, because hopefully from this conversation you've understood me being quite a nice fluffy guy, and I'm quite lovely. And people read Pie Shop, and then I will meet the next day and they go, oh, there's stuff about you I don't know.
Are you okay?
Okay, is this a cry for help? It's kind of a reaction because Pie Shop was written many years ago, and it is one of the best things I've written. But it was an idea of when people wanted to do serial killers or the like. It's always kind of irked me that they're always cool or wearing mirror shades or something. I thought people who kill people like this are not pleasant people. They're not cool. It's a nasty, dirty, grimy sort of obsession, and it always kind of irked me a bit because these people are so cool.
God, I never thought about that.
Silence of the Lambs and the like. Anthony Hopkins' performance is magnetic and it's amazing, but it just adds this mythology behind that. So Pie Shop is kind of saying, oh, you want to play serial killers? There you go. You won't like it.
Yeah.
And I did have a chat. So I'm kind of selling this one. I'm trying not to, because usually people go, "Oh, I've got to read this now." But I was chatting to a guy at one of some sort of game. I went to the White Wolf party at Gen Con one day, and I don't know how we got chatting about this, but we're talking about controversial games. And he was saying, "Oh," I said, "Oh, I've written this one." He said, "Oh, I'd like to see it because I'm quite into these things." He wasn't, crazy going, "Oh, yes, give me the weird game," but he was going very much, "No, I like things that really push the button. I'd be interested, and I've got quite a strong stomach for this, so I'm tempted to see what you've come up with." Because I said to him, "I do have to warn you, it is quite full on. You might. We're chatting. I'm quite fluffy. It is quite fun." And he mailed me back. I just sent him a copy, and he mailed me later on and said, "Yeah, I read it. I loved it, but you were not kidding. Yeah, there's right. No, I've seen a lot of stuff, and yeah, I did." There is a part of it. I got accused of marketing genius for this. This is once, which is completely ill-timed. I was at I went to one of the first Gen Cons I went to. I wanted to sell my game, so I had some copies I'd had printed out, and I didn't know about printing and on demand and things like that. So I had them printed out, and I wanted to sell them, but I just wanted my game to be out there. I didn't really want to make profit on it. I just wanted it to happen and go, right, here's a game I've made. Let's see what happens. So, and I had a few contacts at the time. I hadn't really written very much. I had a few contacts, and I said to a few gaming companies, "Would you mind selling my game on your stand in recompense? Because I know you're spending money for your stand. You can keep the profit. Just give me my unit cost for the books. And if you think that's okay as a deal, then I will send you a copy of the book so you can read it, because you really should make sure whether or not you want to be attached to this.
Right.
I'm not going to spring any surprises on you." And one of the guys who did Crimson Empire, they said, "Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. It's fine." It's great, send the copy. And what they did, I was hoping they'd put a copy on their stand, but they didn't actually put it under their counter. So somebody said, I saw a thing a while ago, say, "Oh, Pie Shop, it was this like marketing genius. You'd seen things." I spread I don't think it was Facebook at the time, but there were various news groups you could find. I spread loads of things hinting about what Pie Shop was and that you could find it on this stand. And this guy said, "Oh, it's like this marketing genius." You went to the stand and said, "I'm looking for this game, Pie Shop." And the guy would say, "Okay." And it'll look you up and down and go, "Here's what you're after." It's like this underground hit. It's like amazing.
You were like the dirty magazine of Gen Con.
I know, it was at the time. It was just bizarre. And most people, but it only lasted for, I think he only sold it for about 2 days, because apparently someone who had bought it on the Friday came back on the Saturday and railed at the poor guy, saying, "This is disgusting. This shouldn't be allowed. I bought a serial killer game in good faith, and it upset me." I was quite after. I mean, I'd say my attitude to this maybe. Some people may well disagree with this, but I thought initially I was thinking, "Oh God, I've really upset someone," and that is obviously bad. But I was also thinking, actually, if they got a game thinking this is cool, it's got serial killers in it, and got real serial killers and got something that actually shocked them, maybe that's not too bad a thing.
Well, it's mission accomplished, right?
Yeah, so to a certain extent, I didn't set out to shock people with it, and I was kind of waiting for it to be after some sort of horror in America happens, to find it in someone's school locker, and suddenly I will both have to live underground for the rest of my life, but also I'll be a millionaire or something. It's but it is basically it's a diatribe about evil and how we see it and things like that.
Very interesting.
And it's something I'd still stand by, but it's a game that's always special in some ways, because that was my first game that was out there. And then, of course, you just have all the things that you are just so pleased to write for. So with Cubicle 7, writing for Doctor Who is always a dream come true. Writing for Dune is a dream come true. And particularly, and one of my favourite emails, because I'm also one of my other most loved games of all time, is of course Vampire the Masquerade. I used to run the British arm of the Camarilla way back when. I've met so many friends through playing Vampire and getting involved in that. And I got to write on Tales of the Bloodlines and Lore of the Clans and Lore of the Bloodlines. From the marvellous Eddie Webb was running that. And I got an email from him saying, "We'd like you to work on this. What are your two favourite clans? Which two would you like to work on?" It's like, seriously, I get to, it's Le Sombre and Tremere, in case you were wondering. So basically, I get to pick my favourite clans and write the definitive section on that clan.
Else. Wow.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't have signed me up quicker. I also got to do, I think somebody, they lost somebody halfway through the project, so I got to do the Nosferatu as well, which oddly, probably I actually enjoyed slightly more because it wasn't a clan I was so into, so I didn't have quite the same fan leap into that one. But yes, and then I got to do for Lore of the Bloodlines, I got to do pretty much the two perfect ones, because I got to do the Daughters of Cacophony and the True Bruja. So it was one that there was already a lot of lore out there for, and another one that there was almost nothing about. So that was, instead of trying to reproduce the lore of a particular character, there's so much out there. It was the opportunity to add something to this setting that I'm still in love with. So again, and again, I've managed to do some work on Modiphius, Fall of London as well. But any time I get to work on Vampire, they're my new people to nag. So poor things.
Chris is such a nice guy, though. He's just such a good guy.
It's now moved. I think it's Renegade Studios has it now, because they've just announced their Sabbat book coming out.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
So yes, and they've done their Vampire Companion, which had the Jabis and the Ravnos in it, and the Salubri, which was a nice free download. So I love everything about V5. I think they've done spectacular work on it, the whole team. So that's another thing that's always nice. Even a game that you don't work on or that you love, and then you see a new version, you go, just nailed it.
Well, that is a perfect transition, Andrew, to my what I like to close on when I talk to creators like yourself is, what non-Andrew game or games are you really excited about right now? So what games are you playing now, or ones that you know are coming that have got you excited?
So, oh God, so many, so many. One of my favourite things of recent years has been Invisible Sun. I dived in hard on that one. Not so much because of all the flashy box and things, although it was an amazing box. It caught me at a time when I'd done a lot of overtime at work, so it was like, oh yeah, I know it's expensive, but that ticks a load of my buttons for weird, surreal, magical creature. You can be who you want to be, adapt your character in all these strange ways, create your house and where your character lives, all this sort of stuff, and then have this sort of weird setting that's so inspiring. God, I wish I could write for that one. I think they've done all the books for it now. If they had a fan version, as I've done some for Seventh, it's the thing, even as a professional writer, I still do community content stuff because it's awesome. Brilliant. It gives me an opportunity to do things I might not get. So I've written a load for Seventh Sea for that sort of thing, because it does sometimes get you the work from people who will notice this stuff as well. And if they'd done a fan thing for Invisible Sun, I would have been all over that. I would love to have done that one. So that was phenomenal. Vampires are perennial. I mean, I have worked on some versions of that, and I've now have done Fall of London for Modiphius, so I can't claim I haven't worked on that one. But
right.
Until I had, it definitely was ones I loved. I think other things I've been doing. I have to look at my bookshelf again. The whole pile of unplayed games.
I know.
It goes. I mean, I've just picked up. I finally. God, it took a while. I was an international backer on Altered Carbon, which is another Renegade one. Looking through that, that's been really good. I've had the Yellow King sitting on my shelf. Robin Law's awesome 4-setting game. That's kind of, and I've not got round to that because it's too special at the moment. It's like, no, that's the one I'm going, I'm not going to just read half a book and muddle through it like I usually do when I'm running. No, I'm going to read all of these, and then I'm going to make a time where we're all going to play it, and we're going to set it up, and we're going to give this game frankly the respect it deserves.
It's funny you say that, Andrew, because I think that's true of both Robert and Haidt, both of them. And of course, they work together all the time. But I think you can sit and read their games and never play them and learn a lot and be a better game, run a better game, even if you don't run their game.
I did say this to Kat Tobin, I think, we were chatting at a convention. I said I said initially I'd love to write for Peregrine. I'm not good enough. My word skills are not good enough for Peregrine. she said, "Oh, I'm sure." I said, "No," because I said I honestly see Peregrine is the literary end of role playing.
Interesting.
That's like, a lot of us doing novels. If anyone is a literary role playing, it's Peregrine, because their stuff is so well researched. It's on point. You know that the people writing it they've read these books. They're not just listing them off Wikipedia. They have read these books. They understand these, and they are woven this stuff in. So yes, I always think I'd like to be good enough to write for Peregrine.
Isn't that funny? Oh, that's great. Yeah, I have just started exploring their stuff because I had Robin on the show and he was a wonderful guest, and just kind of dove in and now it's all. And this is what's fun for me is that I've seen none of it, so it's like I go to Peregrine and I see this long list of games that have come out over time, but for me it's Christmas. It's all brand new to me, which is exciting. Which is real exciting. So, Andrew, this has been a real pleasure, my friend, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
Cool. It's been lovely to have it. I will waffle on about role-playing, as you can tell, for hours.
Well, I'm going to come...
I think it's my selling thing at conventions. I think people buy games from me just to shut me up, to be honest. It's like, if I buy this game he's going on about, will he leave me alone?
That's funny. Well, we'll definitely I'm going to come up with an excuse to trick you to come on again. But for those listening, if they, obviously we talked about the games that you've worked on. We talked about Dune. We can go to Modiphius, and I'll have links to all of this in the show notes. But in general, if somebody wants to get more Andrew, where should they go?
Oh, well, I have my website for Corone Design, which is very badly updated, but that will usually... And of course, all my stuff's on Drive-Thru RPG. One or two things sometimes, very irksome, get down as Andy Peregrine rather than Andrew Peregrine, which means I have two different writer profiles, which is really annoying. But yes, all the listings of my work, if you look up on Drive-Thru, everything's crept up and collated there. Corone Design is my imprint, and I tend to crop up in lots of different places. I'm mostly working these days for hopefully to do more Doctor Who stuff for Cubicle 7. I'd love to get more involved in some of their Warhammer stuff. Soulbound is just so crazy. It's very entertaining. Absolutely love what's going on with that one. Obviously there is more Dune. We have so much more planned. A lot.
Oh, that's great.
We've got about I think I'm allowed to say we've got 2 things in layout at the moment, another thing in writing, and a couple of accessories all in production. Wow. So I would love to tell you more about those, but I can't. We haven't announced them yet.
Yep.
But
understood.
The stuff's coming out in shops at the moment. This is not the last you will see of Dune. We have got loads of stuff on the way. We have plans up to like 2023 easily. And then that's just when we stop with the plans of things we've already discussed. Then we can start doing more stuff as well. So yes, that's all out there. And I also keep an eye on EN Publishing because I do blogs for them, and I work on the 2000 AD line as well now and again. So I've done some of the bits for Judge Dredd, and I'm nagging them to let me do Absalom, which I really love. I want to do some of that one.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's great. And we're going to have links to all of that in the show notes. So for those of you listening, just scroll down. You'll see links to all of the stuff that Andrew talked about. And for those of you that stuck around all the way to the end, I appreciate you listening. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to Tabletop Talk and share it with your friends. Check out our content on YouTube and Twitch. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and stay updated on everything coming from Third Floor. All the links are in the show notes. Take care, floorheads.
Well, Andrew, your internet held up the whole time.
Yep.
And that was a fantastic conversation, man. Thank you so much. Exactly what I love to do is just, get off the page and let's just talk about games, which is...
Oh, God, I can ramble all day. Yeah, it's
yeah, well, you did.
It's like a disease or a sickness. It's
absolutely perfect. All right. So how long ago... I'm trying to figure out how to introduce Opera House. How long ago did you start working on Opera House?
Well, I can claim it's something like the game that 30 years in the making, which would be a lot clearer to say the game I kept not getting round to for 30 years.
Beautiful. That's actually be a great intro. That'll be a great intro. All right, I'll bring us back.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to end up buying your stupid Opera House game. That sounded really good.
Well, I'd be more than happy to send you a PDF token. That's
you don't need to do that. I would prefer to buy it, but thank you. It's really like, and like there's several things in there, Andrew, but the one that just rung in my head was that overarching. God, it's not a clock, but there's something about having the play and the cues and the timing for that. Very fascinating, man.
It takes a bit of setup. I've found that the setup for creating the show does take quite a big chunk. It's almost like creating another character. But it does, you do some random rolls, you put together how long the show is, and then you've got to run. You've got to figure out where your stuff is, and so people get a lot of choice. There's a lot of random tables to roll on. So I have designed it so you don't need to already know theatre to figure things out. There's a lot of things you can roll and figure out roughly where it is. But what takes the time is you can put things together. So, for instance, if one of your characters is an actor, and one of the other characters is a dresser, you can decide that one of your scene changes is them doing a costume change, and it puts your characters together. Or that if one of you is on the crew and one of you is a stage electrician, you might be moving the same piece of scenery together and somebody's plugging it in while you're moving it. And these are moments that allow you to get the characters to meet up during the show and say, after this cue, I've got another one, but you need to chase that saboteur down, and I saw him on the corridor.
To deal with the rats.
I'll deal with the rats.
That's great. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to bring us. Go ahead. Oh, hey, are you still here? Wow. Well, the episode is over, but if you're bored, why not go to patreon.com and support the show for as little as $1 a month? Yeah, you can just scroll down and get the link. It's Patreon that makes this and all of our other content possible. Don't you want to join the other floorheads on the Patreon Discord? Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Take care. Bye.